Accused of driving drunk and hitting 4 first responders in the North Metro area last week is due in court. Now we're learning a little bit more about that crash. Court documents for Benjamin Winters describe him as having bloodshot, watery eyes and slurred speech. Winters is accused of driving a Toyota Tacoma past barricades and hitting 2 Commerce City police officers and 2 South Adams County firefighters. The first responders were there handling a separate drunk driving crash on I-76. The affidavit says one of the firefighters broke his leg and has a head injury. Winters would not talk to police on scene, but then consented to have his blood drawn. Records show he's still in jail under a $10,000 bond.
Today, a man is expected in court accused of shooting and killing someone at a Tesla charging station. Now, reporter Courtney Yoon joins us now in studio. And Courtney, this comes after a months-long investigation.
Yeah, Jordan, more than 7 months after this happened, 39-year-old Jeremy Smith was arrested yesterday. He's being held on charges of second-degree murder and manslaughter in the shooting death of 33-year-old Adam Fresquez. Police say Fresquez and Smith got into some sort of road rage incident on May 3rd. They both pulled over at the charging station outside the Edgewater Public Market. Investigators say video shows Fresquez walking towards Smith's car. Then they say Smith maced and shot him and then took off. Smith later called 911 reporting what he did and saying Fresquez pulled a gun. Police now say their investigation took months of collecting evidence and submitting it for forensic testing. Throughout those months, Fresquez's family has been pushing for Smith's arrest. His mom says her son had a wife and 2 children.
I wake up thinking that it was a nightmare. I go to sleep praying to God for just a little bit of answers, just so we can know what's going on.
Police say they got the results of their forensic testing 1 week ago today. That led to Smith's arrest yesterday. He's now in jail and expected in court later on this morning.
All right, Courtney, thank you.
Today, prosecutors plan to call their last witness in the trial of 2 paramedics charged in Elijah McClain's death. Their second to last witness was an anesthesiologist who says there was no reason to give Elijah McClain ketamine before his death in 2019. When paramedics got to the scene where police had Elijah McClain in handcuffs in 2019, they didn't take his pulse or his blood pressure or put a device on his finger to measure oxygen in his blood. Dr. Damian Robinson testified that those paramedics should have assessed McClain's condition before giving him the powerful sedative, and that could have prevented his death.
At the time of ketamine administration, you can see that he's not moving any longer. In fact, when there's an administration of a noxious stimuli, which is the needle going into the shoulder, he doesn't flinch, he doesn't move.
Peter Kachuniak and Jeremy Cooper are charged with reckless manslaughter and multiple counts of assault. Once the prosecution rests, the defense will start making their case.
Nearly 2 years after the Marshall Fire, survivors who lost homes have complained about lowball offers or slow payments from their insurance. Well, now families are turning to court. That was the case as well after the East Troublesome Fire in Grand County back in 2020. Chip Merlin says his law firm helped about 20 families sue their insurance companies. They complained about lowball reimbursements on rebuilding costs or delays in paying their claims. He says usually people cannot sue their insurance company once it's been more than 2 years after the fire. For the victims of the Marshall Fire, that deadline is coming up while more than 400 families still don't have a permit to rebuild a home or business.
If your insurance company did not fully pay you, there is a day of reckoning coming up. I would say that anybody who has a valid claim should have a fairly good degree of having success.
Merlin says that most lawsuits are resolved within a year. Researchers in California are concerned about a new consequence of intense wildfires that could pose a threat to people moving back into their homes.
Scientists at Stanford think extreme heat from fires could turn a harmless metal into a cancer-causing one. They tested soil after wildfires in Northern California in 2019 and 2020, looking for a certain metal. Exposure to a chemical in that metal is tied to lung cancer. The researchers found areas where the soil was already rich in metal or where fires burned at high temperatures were most likely to have the cancer-causing metal. They're concerned it could travel in smoke or blow as dust after the fire is out.
New overnight, leaders at the UN Climate Conference in Dubai are agreeing to transition away from fossil fuels. Leaders are calling the deal historic. It says that the transition would get the entire world to net zero greenhouse gas emissions in 2050. It also calls for countries to triple their renewable energy and double energy efficiency. Well, some leaders are worried that the language in the deal is too vague, so some countries might not take as much action as others.
It's 6:07 right now, and today President Joe Biden is planning to meet with families of Americans that Hamas is holding hostage. The families want the U.S. and Israeli governments to work harder on their relatives' release. Right now, the White House says 7 American men and 1 woman are still missing. The United Nations General Assembly is officially demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. The United States was one of only 10 countries to vote against the resolution. The UN is also calling for all hostages to be released. The vote doesn't actually mean anything legally, but it does demonstrate global support for ending the Israel-Hamas war. On Friday, the U.S. was the only country to veto a similar resolution in the UN Security Council. Leaders in the U.S. say they are not hopeful the U.S. can secure another pause in fighting, but they say they are putting pressure on Israel to allow more aid into Gaza.
President Biden says that the Defense Department will send $200 million in additional aid to Ukraine. He made that announcement after meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House. Biden also says that Congress will need to pass that funding before their holiday break. Republicans have pushed back against Biden's proposed aid package, which includes funding for Israel. They want Democrats to package the aid with tougher border policies.
Today, the U.S. House plans to vote on whether to open an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. It centers around allegations that President Biden financially benefited from his family's overseas business deals. So far, there's been no evidence against him. Subpoenas from the inquiry will carry more legal weight if it's approved by the full House. Almost every House Republican would have to vote in favor of the inquiry for it to pass. Colorado Representative Ken Buck says he believes he is the only Republican planning to vote against it.
And one thing to know about your weather, we have a storm system to the southwest of us, rotating some moisture into our area in the form of snow. We will continue to see light snow, mainly Palmer Divide south as we head through the day. We do have a chance for another round of light snow in the metro area this afternoon and again overnight.